Okay, so strap in, everyone, because
Wow.
this one is a doozy. We're going deep on a story that, well, it's going to leave you feeling a little messed up, to say the least.
Yeah, buckle up, folks. We're talking about the kind of situation that makes you question the very fabric of reality.
Exactly. Imagine, right? You've spent years, blood, sweat, tears, building your dream home. Skipped out on those wild vacations, no Mallorca for you, just bricks and mortar, sacrifices for that sweet, sweet home ownership.
Ah, Mallorca, the land of sun, sand, and questionable decisions.
Precisely.
Mm.
But, you did the responsible thing, built your nest egg, and then, bam, you get this letter.
Oh yeah, this letter. According to our source material, this little piece of bureaucratic joy landed on a family's doorstep in Rangsdorf, Germany. The date, March 14th, 2025. And the message. Let's just say it wasn't an invitation to a housewarming party.
Nope, not even close.
Yeah.
This letter basically said, surprise, your house. Yeah, it was never actually yours.
Mm.
Can you even fathom that? It's like the ultimate rug pull.
Talk about a twist ending you didn't see coming. And the kicker is, this whole real-life bureaucratic nightmare is somehow the springboard for discussion on, wait for it, poetry slams.
I know, right? It's like, what? How do you even connect losing your home to bad poetry? It's either pure genius or someone went a little too heavy on the existential angst. But hey, that's why we're here, to unpack this whole bizarre thing for you. So, today's deep dive, we're figuring out what the heck happened in Rangsdorf, and then somehow we're going to see how it ties into grabbing an audience's attention with those unexpected dark humor jabs.
Yeah, we're going to try to make sense of this whole tragedy to poetry pipeline. So let's start with the tragic part, shall we? The Schneiders, that's the family in Rangsdorf. They spent years, literal years, building their home, mortgages, you know the drill, scrimping and saving, all that jazz.
No Mallorca vacations for them, that's for sure. All for that dream of owning their own place. And it turns out it was all for nothing. Because, boom, March 14th, 2025, this letter arrives. And it just casually drops the bomb that their house, the one they built, the one they poured their lives into, it legally doesn't belong to them.
The text even quotes the exact phrase from the letter. It's chilling, really. Your house was never yours. It's like something out of a Kafka novel. Just bureaucratic absurdity taken to a whole new level.
Total nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
And then to add insult to injury, the court steps in with their oh-so-generous offer.
Yeah.
They can stay in the house until they're evicted. Just really rub salt in the wound.
The source material really doesn't mince words about how messed up this whole situation is. They describe the typical bureaucracy as, and I quote, screwing people over, and being about as gentle as a prostate exam performed by Freddy Krueger.
Ouch. Yeah, not exactly known for his bedside manner, is he?
Not at all. But it does paint a rather vivid picture, doesn't it?
It does. It really captures that feeling of utter helplessness, like you're stuck in a system that just doesn't care.
And that's where the poetry slam connection comes in, believe it or not. Our source argues that these emotions, the fury, the resignation, the sense of being completely powerless, they're all too familiar to anyone who's ever faced a less than enthused audience at a poetry slam. You pour your heart out and all you get are crickets, or worse, yawns.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like you're bearing your soul, being vulnerable, and the audience is just not there with you.
Oh.
Soul-crushing, to say the least.
Exactly. So the text poses this question. What do you do when your poetry is about as exciting as, well, as German bureaucracy?
And the answer, well, it's a little unorthodox, let's say. They call it the I'm here but not really effect.
Intriguing, isn't it? Sounds like some kind of Zen koan for performance poets.
So break it down for us. What exactly is this I'm here but not really thing all about?
Essentially, it's about creating a stark contrast between what you're saying and what you're actually thinking. You present a normal, even pleasant scene, but your inner monologue is a completely different story. It's all about that hidden layer, the unspoken thoughts that add a whole other dimension to the performance.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. So it's like saying one thing but thinking something totally different.
Right, like a mental Trojan horse. And the text gives us some pretty vivid examples.
Oh, lay them on us.
Okay, so imagine this. You're watching your partner sleep peacefully, all lovey-dovey, right? But in your head, you're thinking about how their snoring is driving you absolutely nuts, maybe even contemplating alternative solutions to the noise problem.
With a pillow, perhaps?
Exactly. The text even adds a little disclaimer, metaphorically, of course, hopefully. Just be clear, we're not advocating for any actual pillow-related incidents here.
Well, of course not. Safety first, people. But yeah, I see the contrast. Peaceful scene, murderous thoughts, very dramatic. What's the next example?
All right, so picture this. Sunday roast at the family table. You're praising your dad's cooking, telling him how delicious everything is. But in your mind, you're wondering if his taste buds are even functioning after years of smoking and whiskey.
The text puts it a bit more bluntly, doesn't it? Something about whether your father's taste buds died from cigarettes and whiskey 30 years ago.
Yeah, they don't sugarcoat it. But
Yeah.
you get the idea, right? It's that clash between the outward politeness and the inner skepticism.
Definitely. And the last example.
This one takes place in the corporate jungle. You're in a mind-numbingly boring work meeting, nodding along to some pointless PowerPoint presentation, but inside your head, you're having an existential crisis, wondering why this guy, who seems mentally checked out, still has a job.
Oh, yeah, the text has a great line about that one. Wondering why the guy across from you is still alive, despite being mentally dead for decades, and justifying his existence through PowerPoint slides.
It's brutal, but so relatable, right?
Absolutely. So it seems like the key to this "I'm here but not really" technique is that unexpected twist, that moment where the audience is thrown off balance by the contrast between what they expect and what they get.
Precisely. The text describes it as a boom moment where the humor, the sarcasm, the darkness, it all comes crashing together. And the author claims that this is what makes poetry truly memorable, even legendary.
So it's not about being nice and polite and just hoping the audience will like your work. It's about grabbing their attention, shaking them up a bit, even if it's uncomfortable.
Exactly. And the source material even takes it a step further, saying that you need to execute the audience with your words and then revive them.
Yeah.
It's a pretty extreme metaphor, but it gets the point across.
Definitely not for the faint of heart. But hey, if you want to stand out in the poetry slam world, maybe a little metaphorical violence is what you need.
Perhaps. And if you're looking for a guide on how to achieve this level of poetic mayhem, the text recommends a book called Poetry Master.
Poetry master. Sounds intense.
Oh, it is. The source material describes it as not just a guidebook, but a wrecking ball for boring texts. They claim it teaches you how to hold an audience captive, how to twist language to your will, how to turn metaphors into mental landmines.
Landmines. Now that's some serious imagery.
Right. It's all about creating an impact, leaving a mark on the listener.
And that brings us back to our Rangsdorf story, doesn't it? Because the text makes this interesting comparison. Do you want your writing to be as dull and forgettable as a visit to the land registry office? Or do you want it to have the same gut-wrenching impact as that letter that shattered the Schneiders' lives?
It's a powerful analogy, isn't it? It makes you think about the power of words, how they can be used to inform, to inspire, but also to destroy.
And the text leaves us with this choice: mediocre or masterpiece. Clearly, they're advocating for the masterpiece, the kind of writing that stays with you long after you've finished reading it.
And then there's the sign-off. It's something else. Your partner in poetic crimes, followed by a "be creative, Stephen So," and a PS about wanting a house. I mean, talk about going out with a bang.
It's a wild ride from start to finish, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
So let's sum this all up for our listeners. We started with this heartbreaking story from Rangsdorf, this family losing their home because of a bureaucratic bungle. And then we went on this crazy tangent about poetry slams and how to make your writing more impactful, more memorable.
And the connecting thread. This idea of unexpected twists of dark humor, of creating contrast and tension to grab the audience's attention.
Exactly. Who knew that German bureaucracy and poetry slams could have so much in common? It's a strange world we live in, isn't it?
It is indeed, and what I find really fascinating is how this "I'm here but not really" effect can apply to so much more than just poetry. I mean, think about it. How often do we all put on a facade, pretending to be something we're not, while our inner thoughts are telling a completely different story?
That's a really interesting point. It's like we're all living these double lives, to some extent. And maybe that's what makes us human, that complexity, that ability to hold conflicting ideas and emotions at the same time.
Perhaps. It's definitely something to ponder.
It is. Now, if you're feeling inspired to add a little more oomph to your writing, to maybe even try out this "I'm here but not really" technique yourself, our source highly recommends checking out Poetry Master Poesiekraft in 7 Tagen.
Sei kreativ, Stefan.
Until next time, folks. Stay curious, stay creative, and try not to get on the wrong side of any German bureaucrats.